Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's rendition of Simple, Affordable, Eatable. We will be talking about wines and spirits and their place in the kitchen and how you use them. Um, to start off with, a lot of people can be kind of averse to using wines in cooking because they feel as though it is not entirely necessary or that it does absolutely nothing to the food. When in actual fact, alcohol, though I do not condone inebriation at all, um, by any means, alcohol is a compound which is more soluble with more flavors than, say, water is. For example, you don't macerate a vanilla bean in water to get vanilla extract. Of course not. You macerate it in bourbon whiskey or cognac or vodka or whatever the case may be, which are all alcoholic substances, because these break down fat soluble and water soluble compounds that otherwise we are not able to taste without the intervention of this alcoholic substance. Wines and cooking. As far as wines and cooking goes, I will start off talking about red wines because red wines are harder to get wrong when it comes to cooking. They are less the red grape is less variable when it comes to things like climate change, or not necessarily climate change, but rather where they're grown, um, and diseases and so forth. White grapes are a lot more susceptible to things as far as that's concerned, especially what type of climate they're grown in. You can get a really, really thin white wine if it's grown improperly, a really nasty, sickeningly fruity, syrupy um, white wine if it's grown in too hot of a climate, so on and so forth. With red wines, um, surprisingly, there are a lot of imported wines that are very affordable. France, especially, is going through a wine bubble right now, meaning that they are producing way more grapes than people are using for wine or to drink or whatever. Um, basically, there's a lot more wine than there are people to drink it, bottles of wine and so forth. So this is a French Côte du Rhône. Um, Within France, it is very great. They have a system of controlling origins. You will always know where a wine comes from if it's French. You will always know about that wine immediately by it's called an AOC, Appellation Origine Contrôlée, which basically tells you the place that the grape was grown in that fits into the specifications of how the wine was made and so forth by the laws that are in that appellation. We have appellations in America, but appellations not to be confused with appellations like the Appalachian Mountains. Um, Appellation. Ation. Yeah, that's right. Um, it means a name. It's a naming system. It's a designated naming system that they have ground rules about what can and can't be grown there to be called a specific name, which makes it very easy for somebody who has a basic knowledge of cooking to know what it is you're looking for, as far as cooking goes, because if a wine is excessively fruity or excessively sour or sweet, even though it shouldn't be, or damaged by um, too late of a harvest or whatever, that is only going to be magnified when you cook the wine down. It's not going to get any better, and adding water is not going to add any flavor to it. It'll dilute the crappiness of a wrong choice of wine, but it's not going to fix anything. This is called La Vieille Ferme. You might not have this where you live, but generally most bottle shops I've seen and most grocery stores, depending on what state you live in, like how they regulate the alcohol purchasing in your state. Most places have this. I didn't see it when I was in Georgia, but I did see it when I was in Utah. I'm in Utah now, actually, and they have all three types. They have the rosé, the white, and the red. This is a red. Um, it's nice because you can tell by the little cap. The red wine cap is red, and white wine cap is, well, it's not white, but it's green, and then the rosé is pink. So there you go. These are all very full-bodied wines. If you can't buy a Burgundy, which is the best to buy, or if you can't buy a French wine, a California Mountain Red is fine. A Pinot Noir is a good substitute. Um, I would. This is a Syrah. These are made from Syrah and Grenache grapes, the red type. Um, but we're going to be focusing, like I said, on French wines. I'm going to be talking about those, and then I'll get into the domestic things because, like I say, when you're dealing with French wines, you always know what to count on because they're very well known. They've been doing it for 1,500 years. Um, very, very long time. They know their stuff when it comes to having wines. They cook with them all the time. They're the masters of cookery. Um, White wines, you can get into a little bit more trouble when it comes to when it comes to trying to pick what it is that if you're going to make chicken fricassee instead of coq au vin. Coq au vin is with red wine. Chicken fricassee or poulet fricassee or however the crap they pronounce it is with white wine. And white wine, you can get into more trouble, like I said, because a white wine can be rather sweet or off dry. It can be nutty. It can be robust and aromatic, or subtle and aromatic. It's very, very, it's extremely variable. Um, what can happen to white grapes? This is the same brand of the white, I mean the red. This is the white version of the red that you just saw. This is a Luberon. The last one you saw was a Vanteau type, which they both come from the same vineyards on two different sides of the same hill. Because this is made with, I want to say this is made with a white Grenache and Ugni Blanc. Ugni Blanc is what they make cognac out of. Cognac is the distilled spirit that everybody loves, whether to drink or to cook with. This is full bodied. Both of these wines actually. Um, this red wine is young. It was only from 2010. It was 2013 when I bought it. It hasn't had much time to get any older in the bottle because that can happen. This is from 2011. They're um, they do very well because they have a great balance of fruitiness, aroma, acidity, and they they don't bite. For example, they've been aged in oak casks that are French from Limousin, and the French oak is by far superior to American oak. These two are your best choices. Um, French wines, if you're going to cook with, should be really if it's white from the Pinot Blanc or the Chardonnay grape or grape. Um, Sometimes, like I say, the white wines in America are not reasonable to come by. So I have two words for you: French vermouth. French vermouth is great because it is always going to be full-bodied. It is always going to have a good acidity balance because people are going to use it in martinis that have to taste fairly consistent. And not to mention, when they age this stuff, they put cardamom and coriander and lavender and all kinds of things, herbs in it. A lot of companies very closely guard their herb secrets that you use for, their manufacturing of the French vermouth. This is great stuff. It's a fortified wine, meaning that they let it ferment. The wine ferments. sugars converting into alcohol. But along the way, since this is French and this is dry vermouth, they ferment it almost entirely, but they fortify it with brandy. With the Italian vermouth, you wouldn't use that in cooking ever, except for maybe desserts. You can use that in desserts, but uh, the reason it's sweeter is because they don't let it ferment quite as long, and then when they add the brandy, the yeast dies because yeast makes alcohol, but alcohol kills yeast. So there comes a point when the yeast can only eat so much sugar before they die because they've turned the sugar into alcohol. So French vermouth is a great substitute if you're making chicken coq au vin. It'll be coq au vin blanc or chicken fricassee or finishing to your sauces or whatever. It's great stuff. Julia Child and Jacques Pepin used a lot of French dry vermouth. Um, a word on a word on brandy. Brandy should be comparable in good taste to cognac. Um, this is this does a pretty good job. This is actually from France. This is not a cognac. You're like, oh, really? They make brandy in other places that are in France that are not in Cognac or Armagnac, which are two little towns that are in Gascony. This is from um, a village near Nantes, which is in the Loire, the Loire Atlantique place. It is. If I gave you a blind taste test, you'd have a really hard time knowing that this was not cognac, and it is significantly cheaper than cognac. The Hennessy this size, which is this is a fifth. This is 750 milliliters, a fifth of a gallon. Um, it's, that would be how much money? I want to say 200 milliliters is $18. So this would this would be something like $40 if it were actual cognac. This is actually $13. This is $13, and you get the same quality. It's French, and you use them for finishing for sauces. You don't usually use them only. However, if you don't have any wine to use, this just putting 2 tablespoons in will kind of help you mimic the effects um, to some extent because they pull out those flavors as needed. You just use water or chicken stock or whatever the recipe calls for and add a few drops of this brandy, which is distilled wine, much the same way that whiskey is distilled grain, like beer. Um, Brandy is distilled wine. It should favor comparably to a good cognac, like I say. And if you're short on, if you don't have any vermouth left or anything like that, you drinking all of it or used it or whatever the case may be, adding just a few drops of this will certainly not going to hurt anybody. That's for sure. Um, liqueurs. Um, when it comes to desserts, generally you only use well, you only use liqueurs in, like I say, desserts. Um, they're not used to you wouldn't poach like do what Germans do, and they poach wine. They poach pears in red wine or anything like that. You would never do this with a liqueur. This is for something like flaming foods. Um, they're always called for, like I say, in desserts. Dark Jamaican rum is usually the best type to use. I myself don't have rum because I don't like rum. Um, they do it's because it gives a very nice full flavor. Rum is kind of like the cognac of liqueurs. Dark Jamaican rum is dark because it has a lot of residual sugar left over. Um, Orange liqueur is pretty good. You don't want to. You can use it in most any dessert, really, if you like orange flavor. If you don't like orange flavor, but you want to have that added, like they say, je ne sais quoi, um, to your custard or your rum baba or whatever, you can use brandy instead. Brandy's fine. It's fairly neutral, um, kind of two-dimensional, one-dimensional when it comes to flavor. Um, Excellent when it comes to not wanting orange flavor in whatever it is that you're having. If you don't have rum, use brandy because you can use it for more than just desserts. Um, they say that Madeira and port are and things like vermouth are usually the final little flavor fillip, like in the port or Madeira sauce that you use with ham or anything like that. They should be of the medium dry type, but they're generally fairly moderately priced. They're not too bad. Um, Julia Child says that sherry and marsala are rare in French cooking. It doesn't really matter because you're probably not going to be cooking anything French. Um, this is not entirely true. If you've read um, A Guide to Modern Cookery or in its French inception, as they say, Le Guide Culinaire, Escoffier frequently specifies a good sherry or marsala. These are very good quality. They have a very nutty character because of the Solera system that they use to age these. The Spanish, it has a lot to do, this method of winemaking, from when the Spanish went to South America and then they came back via a very equatorial route, and they had wine in these casks, and the really humid climate of being on a boat and rocking around and being in the hot sun for part of the day and then not in the sun at night um, created a very desirable wine, actually. They put brandy in it to keep it from spoiling, which, as we all know, it killed germs because brandy is nothing but alcohol. You could wash your body in brandy if you were rich like that and really wanted to. Anyway, um, she says they give a unfrench flavor, and the reason I'm quoting her is because she is the American, or was the American guru on most things as far as this is concerned. However, like I said, if you read Escoffier's book, he frequently specifies sherry, but he spells it the Spanish way, which is excuse me, Xeres, which is Spanish spelling for that. And Marsala is perfectly fine. He only specifies it with pork dishes, but they have a very similar quality. Marsala was invented by an Englishman who lived in Sicily, or is it Sicily? Wherever the town Marsala is, and he was wanting to create a competitor wine to what what we call sherry wine, and most domestic sherries are very good. Christian Brothers sherries are very good. Moving into the domestic part of things, if I may say so, if you cannot get brandy that's imported, I have one. Little bit of advice. Okay, this is Paul Masson Madeira. It is very, very good quality. Um, it has a nutty character to it. The reason I like this is because they don't use a cork. The last time I bought the Christian Brothers Sherry, which is similar in comparison to this, they they it was improperly handled, and basically what happened is that the cork damaged the wine, and it tasted like crap. Um, yeah, that was basically what happens. So, and then Paul Masson Brandy is also a good um, substitute for a French brandy. Basically, I've exhausted everything that I want to say as far as this is concerned. But I do hope that you have enjoyed my constant tomfoolery, and I will be back soon for another video. I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas and take care.